606, it is difficult for the modern mind. Archana Ji, if you have got the text, you can start.
Yes, Ranga.
Okay, go ahead.
It is difficult for the modern mind to understand how we can do more than conceive intellectually of the self or of God. But it may borrow some shadow of this vision, experience, and becoming from that inner awakening to nature, which a great English poet has made a reality to the European imagination. If we read the poems in which Wordsworth expressed his realization of nature, we may acquire some distinct idea of what realization is. For first, we see that he had the vision of something in the world which is the very self of all things, that it contains a conscious force and presence other than its forms, yet cause of its forms and manifested in them. We perceive that we had not only the vision of this and the joy and peace and universality which its presence brings, but the very sense of it, mental, aesthetic, vital, physical. Not only the sense and vision of it in its own being, but in the nearest flower and simplest man and the immobile rock, and finally, that he even occasionally attained to that unity, that becoming the object of his meditation. That becoming the object of his meditation. One phase of which is powerfully and profoundly expressed in the poem, "A slumber did my spirit steal," where he describes himself as become one in his being with earth, rolled round in its diurnal course with rocks and stones and trees. Resolved this realization to profounder self than physical nature, and we have the elements of the yogic knowledge. But all this experience is only the vestibule to that supersensuous, supramental realization of the transcendent, who is beyond all his aspects, and the final summit of knowledge can only be attained by entering into the superconscient and there merging all other experience into a supernal unity with the ineffable. That is the culmination of all divine knowing. That also is the source of all divine delight and divine living.
Yeah. So, it's interesting paragraph. He is referring to two poems of Wordsworth, William Wordsworth. Now, in my book I had two poems, but I don't know if I have it here. Let me see. Yeah. There are three poems: the daffodils, the solitary leaper, and the slumber. Okay. But I have not got the poems. Next time, I'll put the poems also on this my note, and then we will see how Swami is why he is referring to them. Okay, so we'll start reading the. By the way, William Wordsworth was a poet, English poet, and he had definitely some spiritual experiences. Long poems also are there. Ode to Immortality, and also the small poems which Ranga is referring to here, 3 poems. Okay, they are very interesting poems, and even if you are not interested in poetry, the ideas you can see what he is saying. For instance, in the Ode to Immortality, he says, "Trailing clouds of glory do we come from God." Okay, so he is very aware that all creation comes from God. He has used the word God. Okay. So, anyway, so now next time I'll get those poems and put them on my notes so that we can enjoy this poems also, and how and why Shirley is referring to them. Okay. It is difficult. Go ahead, Yasmin.
William Wordsworth was in Grasmere. Windermere and Grasmere are the two lake districts in UK.
Okay.
And in Grasmere, his house is there which one can visit. Then across the road, there is the lake. And exactly at the edge of the lake, the daffodils grow.
That's right.
And there are trees. And the background of the lake, there are hills and dales. So for daffodils, he writes, I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over hills and dales. When
Yeah.
all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Besides the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the. This is the exact scene. When you go there, you see it. And now they've made a special park for William Wordsworth up there.
Uh-huh.
So when we went, the daffodils had withered, but one could imagine when you went there and stood below the tree and you could get caressed by the gentle breeze.
Yeah. Okay, so that's right. So Ranga he knew all the English poets because he himself was a poet when he was even 11 years old. He wrote a poem which he afterwards said that is very immature, but it's not at all immature. It's very interesting, and he modeled that poem. It's even published in some magazine. Okay, so it is there. There you are. Jishnu has put on immediately he has put on the net. So next time we will discuss that a little more in detail. It's very interesting. Okay, the two poems. Even those who don't like poetry can immediately have a look at that and enjoy. Okay. Anyway, that's the next time because I'll have to put them on the net. It is difficult for a modern mind to understand how we can do more than conceive intellectually of the self or of God. We know, for instance, the self, we have several, 4 or 5 words which we try to imagine. The first is there is unity, oneness. Okay? Second, there is immutability, absolutely no movement in the consciousness at all. Okay? Then there is also the sense of infinity and eternity. You realize that you are not limited only to the body-mind life. You are something that can be anywhere in the universe. You have no fixed body-mind life. You are not stationed in any one place. You are everywhere. And finally, eternity. And you realize that you have always existed. Your soul has always existed in the past, and also it will exist in the future. Okay? So there is the eternity of the soul. Immortality. You realize that you are immortal. The body-mind life is mortal. So this is the experience of the self. But we are all, when we think of these words, then we think of it as intellectually we are conceiving of the self. But to actually experience it is something else. And he is referring to Wordsworth. Okay, so it is difficult for the modern mind to understand how we can do more than conceive intellectually of the self or of God. But it may borrow some shadow of this vision, experience and becoming. So again he is referring to vision, experience and becoming. Remember, he is discussing that. So, vision, experience and becoming from that inner awakening to nature which a great English poet has made a reality to the European imagination. If we read the poems in which Wordsworth expressed his realization of nature, we may acquire some distant idea of what realization is. He has already described vision and experience, and now he is talking about the realization. If we read the poems in which Wordsworth expressed his realization of nature, we may acquire some distant idea of what realization is. Realize it, to make real, not some mental imagination. Real it becomes. For first, we see that he had the vision of something in the world which is the very self of all things that it contains. A conscious force and presence other than its forms. So all the forms in the physical world, whether they be inanimate stones, okay, or hills or mountains or whatever, and also inanimate, animate forms also, all animals and even human beings, okay, and beings. All these, the divine presence is there behind. And if you experience that divine presence, that is what the poems refer to. Okay? Yet, cause of its forms. So, the divine presence is different from the form, yet it is the cause of all the forms. Because the divine presence is there, the forms exist. If the divine presence did not exist, these forms would collapse and there would be no form at all. Okay? And manifested in them. We perceive that he had not only the vision of this and the joy and peace and universality, not the words joy. Okay? In the daffodils, in the poem Daffodils, he dances with the daffodils in joy. And peace. Peace is there. I told you that nothing in the physical world affects you when you are in the self. So you have absolutely peace and universality. You become cosmic. Okay. All the words here refer to the self. Joy, first of all. A very calm, quiet joy. Okay. And peace. If you are in peace, the joy is, it will not be intense joy. It may not be ecstasy, but it will be a calm, quiet joy because there is no disturbance in you at all. Okay? And universality, you feel yourself to be everywhere. You feel yourself to be everywhere, including everybody and including also everybody in yourself. Okay? Two types of cosmic consciousness. One, you are in everybody and everybody also is in you. They can occur separately, but they can also occur simultaneously at the highest level. Okay? Which is its presence brings, but the very sense of it, mental, aesthetic, vital, physical. Even physically you feel it. Not only this sense and vision of it in its own being, but in the nearest flower, the simplest man and the immobile rock. The nearest flower is referring to the poem Daffodils. If you don't want to wait until next week, you can go to the internet and just type the Daffodils poem of Wordsworth and you will get the poem. It's a sonnet, 14 lines. And the simplest man is referring to the solitary reaper. That's the poem's title, The Solitary Reaper. He identifies himself with that person. Okay? That's a cosmic consciousness. And the immobile rock. The immobile rock is a small poem of 4 lines which describes the self beautifully. Okay? So you can do that if you are interested. Otherwise, next time we look at all the 3 poems and see exactly why Srinath is referring to them. Okay? And then immobile rock, the title of the poem is only 4 lines. A slumber with my spirit seal. Where he describes himself as become one in his being with earth. And that's the last line, rolled round in his diurnal course with rocks and steel and stones and trees. You become one with nature. Okay? Exalt this realization to a profounder self than physical nature, and we have the elements of yogic knowledge. So, when he identifies himself with rocks and stones and trees, he is realizing the universal divine in nature. Okay? And we have elements of the yogic knowledge, you go beyond it. But all this experience is only the vestibule to the supra-sensuous, supra-mental realization of the transcendent, who is beyond all these aspects. And the final summit of knowledge can only be attained by entering into the superconscious and there merging all other experience into a supernal unity with the ineffable. This sentence we'll read again and identify all the words. Okay? Exalt this realization to a profounder self than physical nature. So when you are realizing the physical nature, you are in the realization of the divine in nature. Okay? Pantheism in the world. Pantheism is a realization of the divine in nature. Okay? And those who have that experience feel that that's the ultimate experience. Pantheism. Divine is there in nature. Nature itself is divine. So we have the elements of Jyotirmaya. But all this experience is only the vestibule. The vestibule is the front room, okay? Not the deeper aspects. It's only the vestibule. Okay? The first experience. To that supra-sensuous. Supra-sensuous because you are going beyond the senses. And what is that? You have to become, the senses are sattva, rajas, tamas. So you have to go beyond them. Yeah. What's the Sanskrit word for that? When you go beyond the modes of nature. What's the word in Sanskrit? Supra. The modes of nature are the sattva, rajas, tamas, and you have to go beyond them. Okay? So, the word is not coming to me now, but it will come probably at the end of the of this paragraph. But all this experience is only the vestibule of that supra-sensuous, supramental realization of the transcendent. Remember, the transcendent is when you are going outside the universe. When you experience that, you are conscious only of the divine and nothing else. Okay? Who is beyond all his aspects. Which are the aspects of the transcendent? Saguna, Nirguna. Okay? The individual and the collective. The personal aspect of the divine and the impersonal aspect of the divine. All these things merge in the transcendent. And the final summit of knowledge can only be attained by entering into the superconscious and there merging all other experiences into a supernal unity with the ineffable. Ineffable you can't put into words, you can't express. It's inexpressible. Okay? So that is obviously referring to the supermind, the third level. That is the culmination of all divine knowing. That also is the source of all divine delight and divine joy. When you go to the third level, in the Gita, Purushottam. In Swayan's language, the Ishwar consciousness, or the supramental. Okay? The Purushottama consciousness is one aspect of the supermind, Swayam says. Okay? The supermind is such a huge, vast thing that the Purushottama experience is only one aspect. It is not the supramental, but it is one aspect of the supramental. Okay, so
Ranga, you were talking of Trigunatit, Trigunatit, beyond Rajas,
yeah,
beyond Rajas, Tamas and Sattva.
Yeah.
Trigunatit.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right, exactly. Trigunyatita. You are gone beyond the three gunas. Trigunyatita. Atita. You have gone beyond it. That's the word. My mind is now failing, I don't know how long I will to continue, but the memory is falling short. All these words don't come to me. Archanaji, you are absolutely right. Now we go to the next para. That status of knowledge. It's a very small para. And Yasmin, you have the text with you?
Yes, please, I shall read.
Go ahead.
That status of knowledge is then the aim of this path, and indeed of all paths, when pursued to their end, to which intellectual discrimination and conception, and all concentration and psychological self-knowledge, and all seeking by the heart through love, and by the senses through beauty, and by the will through power and works, and by the soul through peace and joy, are only keys, avenues, first approaches and beginnings of the ascent, which we have to use and to follow till the wide and infinite levels are attained and the divine doors swing open onto the infinite light.
So Swami explained what he means by the chapter is status of knowledge. And he has told us that there are two statuses of knowledge. One is the lower knowledge and one is the higher knowledge. The lower knowledge you get through the senses, and through your senses data is collected, and then your mind is analyzing, imagining, analyzing, and you get scientific knowledge. That's a lower knowledge. The higher knowledge consists of the three things that he has spoken of. You remember what the three things are? The three things are vision, experience, and realization. So he has explained to us what vision is. He has told us also what is realization, and realization he has spoken of just now. And internal experience. You come to know God through your senses fully. Okay? That's the experience. Not only the sight, but also even the entire, all your senses. You actually touch the divine. You actually see Him, hear Him. All the senses are awake to the divine. That's the experience. And finally you have the realization of God. He has explained to us what is meant by that. So now we are in, he has told us all these three. So now very clearly there is a lower knowledge and a higher knowledge, and the higher knowledge has to be got through vision, experience and realization, and he has explained to us all the three. Now we go to the next chapter. He begins with the mind, okay? Because it's the mind that, so the purified understanding. What is meant by pure mind? That's the chapter we are going to read today, and we have time. We have got nearly 20 minutes, so we will start reading. So,
You know, this last paragraph which I read,
yes.
the whole thing is only one sentence.
Yes, that is typical Sri. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So, and also note that the status of knowledge is then, that status of knowledge is then the aim of this path. Okay? He says that other yogas can stop at the experience and vision. But my path, the path of the integral yoga, you have to go to the supermind and make it a realization at the highest level, third level. Other levels can stop. But that state of knowledge is then the aim of this path. Very clear, this path and not other paths. They can if they want, but it's not compulsory on them. Indeed of all paths and pursue to the end. Whether they want it or not, if you pursue the path, they will end up with the superman. To which intellectual discrimination and conception and concentration and psychological self-knowledge are all seeking by the heart through love, and by the senses through beauty, and the will through power and works by the soul. So note interestingly how all are coming into the picture. Through love, okay, and the senses through beauty is the Ananda aspect. And the will through power and works, power is through Shakti, and works, okay, Karma Yoga. And by the soul through peace and joy, these are the Jnana Yoga. Peace comes through Jnana Yoga. Are only keys, avenues, first approaches, and beginnings of the ascent which we have to use and to follow till the wide and infinite levels are attained and the divine doors swing open into the infinite light. So, he is talking about the ascent. There are only, that is the reason why they say that Swayan's yoga starts where the others end. Because the others end at level 2, okay, with the experience of the self, or experience of power, or experience of Ananda. But Swayananda wants to go to the third level where all have to be experienced. Chit, Shakti, Ananda. All have to be experienced. So, we go to the next para, the purified understanding. Tarika, you will read? If you have the text.
Yes, Ranga.
Yeah, go ahead, read. Small para.
The purified understanding. the description of the status of knowledge to which we aspire determines the means of knowledge which we shall use. That status of knowledge may be summed up as a supramental realization which is prepared by mental representations through various mental principles in us, and once attained again reflects itself more perfectly in all the members of the being. It is a re-seeing and therefore a remolding of our whole existence in the light of the divine, and one and eternal, free from subjection to the appearances of things and the externalities of our superficial being.
So he has summed up whatever he has said in this short first para. That's his style. Usually the first para he sums up what he has said previously, and the last para he gives you a hint of what has to come in the next chapter. That's his style. Okay? Consistently. And that style is maintained in this small para. So I'll read each one and we'll see what it is. The words are very important. The description of the status of knowledge to which we aspire. Very clearly he is using the word we. As sadhaks of the integral yoga, we can put a stress on the we, because it's not necessarily applicable to the others. It is applicable if they want, but it's not necessarily so for a spiritual life. They can have peace, they can have love, and you can stop there also. They are more than satisfied with that, fine. But those who go to the integral yoga to which we aspire determines the means of knowledge which we shall use. So now he is going to concentrate on the knowledge aspect, the Jnana Yoga aspect. Remember, this whole section that we are reading now is about Jnana Yoga. Earlier, 200 pages or more, he has discussed the Karma Yoga, sacrifice and all. That's Karma Yoga. And the next one will be Bhakti Yoga, very short section. Okay? And the fourth one is the Integral Yoga. So, that status of knowledge may be summed up. That's exactly what he's doing, summing up whatever he said earlier, as a supramental realization. Now he is very clearly using the word supramental realization, which is the third level. Okay? Supramental realization, which is prepared by mental representations through various mental principles in us. What are the various principles in us, mental principles? One is imagination, okay? And one is the concentration. So by concentration and imagination, okay, and exclusiveness, you can reject everything else. These are the mental principles, and once attained, again, it reflects itself more perfectly in all the members of the being. Now this is very interesting. The other yogas go to the higher levels of consciousness and stay put there. They reject the lower. But Sangha is not saying that. He is saying the opposite. He is saying once you go to the higher level, you ascend, and once attained, again you have to bring down those principles you have experienced there into the body-mind level. Okay? Reflects itself more perfectly in all the members of a being. Which are all the members of the being? Body, life and mind. So that experience, spiritual experience, has not to be left in the upper shelf. It has to be brought down and made a reality of life, living life. Okay? So it's a re-seeing. Your whole way of seeing, looking at things changes. And therefore, a re-molding of our whole existence in the light of the divine and one and eternal. Now it's very interesting what he's saying. Re-seeing and therefore a re-molding. When the spiritual experience offers, there is a complete U-turn in life. And when you attain to that permanently, you yourself are surprised at what you were and what you have become. Okay? So that's why he refers to that very clearly in some. You are surprised at what I was and what I have become. Okay? Completely different. It's a re-seeing and therefore a re-molding of our whole existence in the light of the divine and one and eternal, free from subjection to the appearances. Which are the appearances? The physical forms and the matter, life and mind. These are the appearances of things, and the externalities of our superficial being. Which are the externalities? Body, life and mind. Okay? So this is what Sanjay is saying. It is not enough to realize spiritual realms, but they have to be brought down into the life. That's what he is saying. Now we can go to the next para, small para. Such a passage from the human to the divine. Jishnu, you have the text with you?
Rangada, one question.
Yes, tell me.
This re-seeing that he is talking about, is it from that we were, how we were and how we have become, is it from good to bad? It can be both, no, bad to good and good to bad. Or is it only upward?
Only upward. And it can't be downwards.
Yeah,
Because sometimes it can be really opposite also, no? And then you realize, where you have to go.
Yeah.
Your question is a ironic one.
But the only thing is he is seeing in the divine light.
But Sri Aurobindo himself admits that during one sadhana, there are peaks. Once goes up, once goes down, once again goes up. So these little periods of depression or, lack of confidence are normal to all sadhaks. But you must have patience and perseverance. So in a way what Tarika said is right, because we do tend to go down also. All the time one doesn't aspire and go straight line up.
Yeah, but go towards once attained. Once attained means now you are permanently in that consciousness. There is no fall anymore to a lower level. Okay, that's why it is so important to note all the words. What Yasmin is saying is correct. In the beginning, there is an ascent and then there is a descent. There is an ascent and a descent. But afterwards, you have attained to it. Attained means permanently you are at that level. Your consciousness cannot fall below that level. Okay, so that's it. Now, Jishnu,
So Dada, can I say that it is beyond the three modes of nature, Trigunatita?
I didn't know your question, Seema.
Now, can I say at this stage what we are discussing just now? At this stage, neither good or bad, but it may be the beyond the three modes of the nature, that
Yes.
the Trigunatita stage.
That's right. Trigunatita, as Archana said, when you have gone beyond the three gunas, Trigunatita. Trigunyam. Okay, so.
Rangada, 1 minute.
Yes.
Am I audible? Here he is talking of supramental realization.
Yes.
That status of knowledge may be summed up as a supramental realization. So when he's talking of supramental realization, there is no question of fall. In what little I understand, supramental realization is something much high, and attaining that realization, staying there, how can there be a fall there?
Yes. In fact, Trigunatita experience can be had at the level 2. Okay. The spiritual plane.
But here he is talking of supramental realization. No?
That's right.
The status of knowledge may be summed up as a supramental. He is talking of supramental realization here.
That's right.
So I don't think there can be a fall. So the re-seeing, again, he is talking of re-seeing in the light of the divine and the one. So the re-seeing is always this re-seeing he is talking of here is at a higher level. So it cannot be negative, and it cannot be a fall or a negative.
But even the re-seeing can be started even at level 2 in the spiritual planes of consciousness.
Yeah, but here what he is talking of, that I am saying.
That's it.
It is a re-seeing and therefore a remolding of our whole existence in the light of the divine and one. He is talking after supramental realization, what the re-seeing will be. So, I mean, what I am seeing here, generally, yes.
Jishnu, read the next para, such a passage.
Yeah, such a passage from the human to the divine, from the divided and discordant to the one, from the phenomena to the eternal truth, such an entire rebirth or new birth of the soul must necessarily involve two stages. One of the preparation in which the soul and its instruments must become fit, and another of actual illumination and realization in the prepared soul through its fit instruments. There is indeed no rigid line of demarcation in consequence of time between these two stages. Rather, they are necessary to each other and continue simultaneously. For in proportion as the soul becomes fit, it increases in illumination and rises to higher and higher, completer and completer realizations. And in proportion as these illuminations and as these realizations increase, becomes fit and its instruments more adequate to their task. There are soul seasons of unillumined preparation and soul seasons of illumined growth and culminating soul moments more or less prolonged of the illumined possessions. Moments that are transient like the flash of the lightning, yet change the whole spiritual future. Moments also that extend over many human hours, days, weeks, in a constant light or blaze, the sun of truth. And through all this, the soul once turned Godwards grows towards the permanence and perfection of its new birth and real existence.
Yeah. No. So we'll do this para again next time because we don't have the time, but there are 3 minutes. I'll just point out one or two things. In other words, soul seasons of unillumined preparation. This is what Yasmin was referring to when you fall back. Okay? Unillumined preparation. You are preparing yourself, but you are not in the spiritual consciousness. You have fallen down. That's a soul seasons of unillumined preparation and soul seasons of illumined growth, positive, and culminating soul moments, more or less prolonged of illumined possession. So, more or less prolonged, it depends. Sometimes it can be very short period, he is explaining that himself. Okay? Sometimes it can be 2 hours, as I said, sometimes it can be 6 months. And then you fall back and again you have the experience. Okay? Moments are transient, like the flash of the lightning. I told you, there was a boy who came when I was in the press, and that's more than 35, 40 years ago. He came and told me that for a very short time he went out of his body. And when he went out of his body, all the problems of body-mind life disappear. And you come to know and see the truth. And then you come back. But you can't forget the experience. So that's what Swami is saying here. More or less prolonged or illumined possession. More or less prolonged. It can vary in time. Moments that are transient, like the flash of a lightning, that experience of the body. Yet change the whole spiritual future. Moments also that extend over many human hours, days, weeks, in a constant blaze of the sun of truth. Now this is probably referring to his own, where he is writing to Motilal Roy in Chandanagar, that I was in Parabrahman consciousness for several hours. These are his words. I was in Parabrahman consciousness for several hours. And after that, again you come down to a lower level, which is definitely more than the self. Okay? But Parabrahman consciousness, several hours he was there. He has used the word several hours. Okay? So that's what he's saying. Over many human hours, days, weeks, in a constant light of blaze of the sun of truth. Even when you have the experience of the psychic, okay, it can last for many days. It changes your life entirely, but it can last, and the fire, the light and the fire that you experience can slowly diminish and disappear entirely in 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, and when you are back to your normal, then you are in a soul season of preparation. You start purifying yourself, you start trying to change yourself. Okay? So those words are very interesting. Soul seasons of unillumined preparation. You are your normal being, but you are trying to become better. And soul seasons of illumined growth. There are ups and downs. So soul seasons of unillumined preparation, down. Soul seasons of illumined growth, up. Okay? And that can last for many times. So, very interesting para. And we can do that next time if you want more in detail. Okay. And so we stop here today, 8:40, 8:41. And we will read, I'll note that we'll redo this one. Okay, so such a passage from the human. Okay? Au revoir everybody, have a nice day.